I know that many are wondering, what is going to be the fate of the United States of America in the last days? I mean, it's hard to find anything about, there's nothing in the Bible that uses the term United States of America. And with the Trump administration taking power, it appears that for now, what they call World War III, but World War III has already been going on. You just don't know it, or most don't know it. Has been averted for now. I want you to listen to what Secretary of State Marco Rubio had to say. Secretary of State Rubio said it is unnatural for a world to be unipolar. The world has always had multiple powers, like now China and Russia. That is a crazy important statement. The Trump administration declares they do not intend to rule the world as the previous administration, but are okay with being a regional superpower. That explains the power play around USA and Canada, Mexico, Panama, and Greenland. If we go back to classic national interest-based politics, the world would become calmer. At least that's what they think. So we'll listen to what Marco Rubio has to say here.
I think we spend a lot of time in American politics debating tactics, like what we're going to do, who we're going to sanction, what letter we're going to send or whatever. I think it really has to start with strategy. What is the strategic objective? What's the purpose, the mission? And I think the mission of American foreign policy, and this may sound sort of obvious, but I think it's been lost. The interest of American foreign policy is to further the national interest of the United States of America, right? I mean, and that's the way the world has always worked. The way the world has always worked is that the Chinese will do what's in the best interest of China, the Russians will do what's in the best interest of Russia, the Chileans are going to do what's in the best interest of Chile, and the United States needs to do what's in the best interest of the United States. Where our interests align, that's where you have partnerships and alliances. Where our differences are not aligned, that is where the job of diplomacy is to prevent conflict while still furthering our national interest and understanding they're going to further theirs. And that's been lost. And I think that was lost at the end of the Cold War because we're the only power in the world. And so we assume this responsibility of sort of becoming the global government in many cases, trying to solve every problem. And there are terrible things happening in the world. There are. And then there are things that are terrible that impact our national interests directly. And we need to prioritize those again. So it's not normal for the world to simply have a unipolar power. That was an anomaly. It was the product of the end of the Cold War. But eventually you were going to reach back to a point where you had a multipolar world, great powers in different parts of the planet. We face that now with China and to some extent, Russia. And then you have rogue states like Iran and North Korea you have to deal with. So now more than ever, we need to remember that foreign policy should always be about furthering the national interest of the United States and doing so to the extent possible, avoiding war and armed conflict, which we have seen 2 times in the last century.
Now, another thing I want to point out is that Marco Rubio is the first pro-Israel U.S. Secretary of State. He is so pro-Israel, in fact, that I have no doubt that when the time comes for him to either choose United States of America or Israel, that he would choose Israel. If you have been paying attention to what he's been saying and what he's been doing, you would come to the same conclusion. So again, I ask, what is the fate of the United States of America? Well, in prophecy. Well, if we're going to find out what the fate of the United States of America is, we have to find out if there's any scripture that points to what would nearly thousands of years later would become the greatest superpower on the earth beyond the Mediterranean Sea. Is there such a thing mentioned in the Bible? Yes, there is. I'm going to give you some clues and some facts of history, and I hope you're not bored by them. If you want to know what's going to happen to the United States, you need to listen to this video. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go to Aramco World. This is Arab literature. It's about Arab literature, I should say, written by Paul Lunde. Pillars of Heracles, Sea of Darkness. Okay? Well, what I want to do first is Ezekiel 38. This is the invasion of Israel by Israel's enemies, which appear to be, now I have come to the conclusion based upon Ezekiel 39, that both the Roman Empire, that is the coastlands of the Mediterranean Sea, and Gog and Magog together are going to, because you have right here Gog of the land of Magog, Rosh, prince of Meshech and Tubal, and then you have coming with him Gomer. Not only Gomer, but Cush and Persia, Iran. Gomer, that is the vast majority of Europe. I should say Ashkenaz, Gomer's son, is the vast majority of Europe. You're taking in nearly everybody on the face of the earth. Sinem does not appear to be involved, so whether the Chinese are involved, who knows? But most of the people on the earth, at least in the Western Hemisphere, are going to be involved, and in the Middle East, are going to be involved in this invasion. And who is not going to be involved specifically? You come down and you read Sheba and Dedan, that would be Arabia today, specifically Saudi Arabia, and the merchants of Tarshish. But I pointed out, you missed something if you don't read this in Hebrew. Kepher or Kafir. Kafir. Young lion. Is it plural? It does not appear to be, as King James Version tries to make it out to be. You always have to be suspect of King James Version, because they twist the structure, sentence structure, and they do word play. That is not appropriate. So, Sachar would be merchants of Tarshish, and the young lion. So you have the merchants of Tarshish, that is one group, and then you have the young lion, which obviously is affiliated with or associated with the merchants of Tarshish. Now, what is a young lion? Well, it's the opposite of an old lion, which means this young lion has not been around very long in the days of the invasion of Israel. Now I go to this. So first, I'm not going to read this very much, but I'm just going to point out to you the beyond the pillars of Heracles. That's where Tarshish is, okay? And Tarshish itself is right here. The pillars of Heracles are right here and here. At the Strait of Gibraltar. You have the Rock of Gibraltar on this side, and you have another pillar, whatever it is, in Morocco on this side. So I'm going to read to you the pillars of Heracles, Sea of Darkness. Where the Mediterranean and the ocean meet are found the lighthouses of stone and bronze, built by Heracles, the great king. Of course, we all know that that's idolatry, but let's continue. These are covered with inscriptions and surmounted by statues, which point as if to say, there is no way beyond me. Beyond me there is no passage for those who enter the ocean from the Mediterranean Sea. No ship can enter the ocean. It contains no inhabited land, and no rational animals dwell there. Where it begins and where it ends are both unknown. It is the Sea of Shadmus, the Green Sea, the circumambient ocean. For the Latin Middle Ages, the Atlantic was Mare Tenebrosum. For the Arabs, Bahar al-Zulamat. Both meant the Sea of Darkness. So in the old days, it was called the Sea of Darkness. And anyone who looked west from the northern coast of Portugal and see the heavy cloud banks lying across the horizon will admit the name is well suited to the Atlantic. It was ill-omened. For Christians, the word Tenebrosum suggested evil and evoked the Prince of Darkness. For Muslims, the Arabic word for darkness could not but call to mind a magnificent Quranic passage in Surah 24, Al-Nur, the light, in which the state of the unbeliever is described as being like the depths of darkness in the vast deep ocean, overwhelmed with billows, topped by dark clouds, depths of darkness one above the other, which is how they describe the Atlantic. This name and its analog, the Dark Sea, sufficiently indicates medieval man's fear and ignorance of the Atlantic Ocean. But the ocean had other more propitious names as well. Two of these, the Green Sea, the circumambient ocean, appear in the passage just quoted from the famous 10th century Arab historian and geographer al-Masudi, whose works are full of fascinating geographical information. The Arabs used other names also, such as the scholarly Iquiamus, directly transliterated from the Greek word Okeanos, and even in later sources from the Western Islamic world, Bahar al-Atlasi, or meaning the Sea of the Atlas Mountains, an exact rendering of the word Atlantic. So I guess Atlantic means the Sea of the Atlantic Mountains, whatever the Atlantic Mountains are. But the most frequent Arabic name for the Atlantic was Al-Bahar al-Muhit, the circumambient, or the all-encompassing ocean. This name embodied a very ancient notion. The Babylonians, and perhaps the Sumerians before them, envisaged the inhabited portion of the world as an upturned boat, a gufa floating into the sea. This old Sumerian word was used to describe the round-bottomed reed boats used in marshes of southern Iraq, where they were still known by the same name. Name and concept have proved extraordinarily persistent. The idea passed from Babylonian to the Greeks, and geographers from Herodotus and Hecataeus on described the world as surrounded on all sides by a universal ocean, even when the limits of the known world had been expanded far beyond anything the Babylonians could ever have imagined. Long after Aristotle had demonstrated the 4th century BCE that the world was a sphere, the old Babylonian image persisted, writing about almost 1400 years after Aristotle, and perfectly aware that the earth is spherical. Al-Masudi could still compare it to an egg floating in water. The Arab historian, the Khaldun, writing 400 years after Al-Masudi and almost 1900 after Aristotle, compared the inhabited portion of the world to a grape floating in a saucer of water. The Babylonians had little knowledge of lands beyond Mesopotamia and its immediate surroundings. Their image of the world was rooted in their cosmology rather than based on observation. That the Babylonians proved to be correct in the sense that all the great bodies of water had encircled the globe are interconnected is fortuitous. Yet it was this idea passed on to the Greeks, then through the Arabs to medieval Europe, that contributed to the geographical discoveries of the 15th and 16th centuries. Hernando Columbus, in his biography of his father Columbus, Christopher Columbus, lists the classical and medieval sources that led to the admiral to think he could reach the Indies by sailing westward. One of the most important of these sources was Aristotle's On the Heavens, a book known in Arabic translations since the 9th century and often quoted by Al-Masudi. The original Greek text reached Italy in the 15th century and after the fall of Constantinople in 1453. But was not printed until after the discovery of America. It had been known in Spain, however, since the 12th century through a commentator on it by Ibn Rushd of Cordova, the Averroes of the Latin Middle Ages, where Columbus knew De Carlo through Latin translations of Averroes more directly through the new Renaissance translation by Italian humanists with whom he was in contact is unknown. In any case, here is the passage that fired his imagination. There is much change, in the stars which are overhead, and the stars are seen different. As one moves northward or southward, indeed, there are some stars seen in Egypt and in the neighborhood of Cyprus which are not seen in northerly regions, and stars which of the north are never beyond the range of observation in those regions rise and set. All of which goes to show not only that Earth is circular in shape, but that it is a sphere of no great size. For otherwise the effect of so slight a change of place would not be so quickly apparent. Hence, one should not be too sure of the incredibility of the views of those who conceive that there is continuity between the parts of the pillars of Heracles and the parts of India, and that in this way the ocean is one. All as further evidence in favor of this, they quote the case of elephants, a species occurring in each of these extreme regions, suggesting that the common characteristics of these extremes is explained by their continuity. Also, these mathematicians who try to calculate the size of the Earth's circumference arrive at the figure only that the Earth's mass is spherical, but also that as compared with the stars, it is not of a great size, 400,000 stades. This indicates not only that the Earth's mass is spherical, but is also, as compared with the stars, not of great size. Leaving aside Aristotle's estimates of the Earth's circumference, which was about twice too large, it is easy to see why Columbus seized upon this passage. Aristotle, the supreme authority of the Middle Ages, suggested that Asia might stretch around the globe, perhaps joining Africa, or at least that both are washed by the same sea. Hence, one could easily reach Asia by setting off westward across the all-encompassing sea. This at least was the theory. It was buttressed by many more classical references as well as medieval legends of islands in the west and even by odd sightings of worked wood cast up on the beaches of the Atlantic islands. But still to be overcome was tremendous psychological barrier that the ancient belief that nothing lay beyond the pillars of Heracles. This belief was enshrined in the motto Ne plus ultra, which there is nothing beyond, a phrase echoed in al-Masudi's account of the statues, which point as if to say there is no way beyond me. For the classical world, the column of Heracles, the pillars of Heracles, were not actual pillars or lighthouses, but two monstrous points on either side of the Strait of Gibraltar, Calpe and Abila, the Rock of Gibraltar, and the mountainous point of Almina, where the city of Ceuta now stands on the ruins of the Phoenician Abila. The Phoenicians sailed through the pillars of Heracles around 1100 BCE and founded their first Atlantic port, Gadir. It's called meaning fortified place. I will show you Gadir right here. This is now called Cadiz, but that was Gadir right there. Okay, and this is also where Tarshish was. Okay, but they're talking about beyond the pillars of Tarshish. Okay, not just here. We'll continue. Now stands where the city of Cadiz now stands, as I showed you. Somewhere in the hinterland lay the fabulous region, or perhaps city, known to the classical world as Tartessos in the Bible as Tarshish. The Phoenicians established a rich trade with the eastern Mediterranean world in gold and silver with the rich mines of Tartessos. They also opened in Atlantic sea routes to the Cassiterides, the 10 islands. Now the 10 islands, yes, were probably somewhere in Britain. That would be correct because that was a place, Britain, where it was a place to mine tin. Okay? And to the Baltic, where they traded for amber. Tin was a vital component in making of bronze. Amber was also used for ornaments. The Phoenicians had virtual monopoly of both. They jealously guarded it and sinked any rival ship that ventured into the western Mediterranean. They regarded their trade routes as state secrets, and classical sources cite at least one Phoenician trading vessel that ran aground rather than let a rival learn its course. The Phoenicians and their successors, the Phoenicians, they were Canaanites, and so were the Carthaginians. And I feel like the Carthaginians were actually Phoenicians. Established trading colonies along the coast of the North and West Africa, anticipating Portugal's Prince Henry Navigator by some 2,000 years. They also made a number of efforts to circumnavigate Africa. One of these, sponsored by the Egyptian pharaoh Necho II, took place around 600 BCE. Herodotus, who calls Africa Libya, and the Red Sea and the Arabian Gulf, is our only source of information about this voyage. Here is how he described it. Now, what I wanted to show you, I don't need to go into the description of this, but what I want to explain to you is that Rome, upon its rise, one of the first things they did was genocide. Yes, that's what they did. The Carthaginians. Yep. And why do you suppose they would do that? Well, because they were the largest rival to Rome. And yes, they guarded the Western Mediterranean and did not let ships come there. And once Rome was able to overthrow the Carthaginians, Rome could eventually invade the islands of Britain, which they did. I think it was around 40 When did... Yeah, 43, the year 43 in the Roman calendar. So I was close. Okay? So, was there any more of this that I needed to show you? I can't read the whole thing, but I think that about covers it in this particular article. And then you can look up, you can type that in your Google and look that up and read the whole thing for yourself. And it would be advisable to read this one too. But once the Carthaginians were annihilated, then the Roman people and the Anglo-Saxons and all of them could come into the British Isles. But what I wanted to point out is the Brits is not the young lions or young lion of Tarshish. Because, once again, it would have to be a young, strong nation in the days where Israel was being invaded in the last days. So who would this young lion be? Okay, you can see right here, it's Tarshish right here. But Tarshish has been there thousands of years. It is not a young lion. Beyond the pillars of Heracles is where the ships of Tarshish traveled. And they did not want anyone else to know where they traveled. Now, I want to show you something. We saw, let's look at it again, Ezekiel Sheba 38:13, Dedan, that's Saudi Arabia, merchants of Tarshish, and the young lion of Tarshish shall say to you, have you come to take a spoil, or you gathered company to take a prey, to carry away silver and gold, to take away cattle? So these are the only two that protest but can do nothing about it. The invasion of Israel. Why can they do nothing about it? Because the world has become multipolar. And when you read here, where is it? Oh, I will send a fire on Magog, this is in retaliation, and on them that dwell carelessly in the coastlands, and they will know Jehovah. Okay, so Magog, who are those who dwell carelessly in the coastlands? Ashkenaz, North Africa, Cush, Ethiopia. Now, these 10 kings It says in Revelation, these 10 kings. Look. See if I can. Revelation 17:12. The 10 kings which you saw are 10 horns are 10 kings which have received. It doesn't say which. It's once again, here we go with a perversion of Scripture. Which take not yet sovereignty, not yet, but receive power as a king one time, or period, one period, with the wild beast, or with the beast. They have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. And they did. See, these kings in Europe, they were beholden for a while to the man at the Vatican. But it says, and these shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them. Now, 10 kings. All right, so I have done this many, many, many times before. 10 kings of Daniel. All right. I'm not sure if it's in this one. Bible study tools. No, well, hold on. Nope. 10 horns. I've done this so many times. Now, this is incorrect right here. Daniel. Why did I put Daniel 7? So I have to type in a few of them and it'll come up. Let me see. So wait a minute. Let's see if that comes up. Here we no. There we go. There we go. Daniel, Revelation, Bible studies. Now this is some of them have it this way, some of them have that way, but this is probably the more correct version. Ostrogoths, Heruli, Franks, Vandals, Lombards, or they are also called Langobards, Visigoths, Suevi, Burgundians, Alemanni, and the Anglo-Saxons. Now, Alemanni is German. If those of you who are in Germany, you know this. I can't remember who the Burgundians is. I believe Suevi is either Portugal or parts of Spain, something like that. The Vandals, the Ostrogoths, and the Visigoths. 3 of these were overrun by the man at the Vatican. It was back in the early days of the papacy. Okay, but right here you have the Anglo-Saxons among the 10 kings. So these are old. This is old. This is not new. This is not a young lion. And they're going there. These are of the invaders of Israel. So am I suggesting to you that the United States is not going to suffer the Great Tribulation? No, I am not. In fact, I am telling you that the United States cannot escape the Great Tribulation. And I'm going to prove it to you right now. Now that we have narrowed down who this young lion beyond the pillars of Heracles is not, we can identify now who that young lion is by the process of elimination. And the one that sticks out like a sore thumb the most would be the United States of America. Let me show you what it says here in Psalm 91 and verse 1. Now, I want to point out something about this particular chapter. It is one of the most important writings in, as they say, New Testament doctrine. It is one of the most important, and to prove that, we will go right here. Luke 4 and verse 10 and 11. For it is written, he shall give his messengers charge over you to keep you, and in their hands they shall bear you up, lest at any time you dash your foot against a stone. Now, you see King James Version saying, and Jesus said this, and no, there is no Jesus. There never was a Jesus, and there never will be a Jesus. The name is Yehoshua. That name in Hebrew means Jehovah is salvation. Jesus in Latin means I am a pig. I have showed you that many times. Now what I want to do is go back to Psalm 91, one of the most important passages in the Scripture, written by David. He that dwells in the secret place, the Most High, shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. So, if you read in Isaiah, you also read that the Moshiach was hidden in Jehovah's quiver. Do you know what that means? It's just like my own son, before he was born, was hidden in my own quiver. Do you get it? Or do you have to, or is your mind like an elementary school child? Say, Jehovah, my refuge, my fortress, my Elohim, in him will I trust. He will deliver from the snare, from the fowler, the trapper, from the grievous pestilence. He will cover you with his feathers, and under his wing shall you trust. His truth shall be your shield and buckler. You will not be afraid of the terror by night, nor of the arrow that flies of the day, nor of the pestilence that walks in darkness, nor of the destruction that wastes at noonday. 1,000 shall fall at your side, and 10,000 at your right side, but it shall not come near you. Only with your own eyes you shall behold and see the reward of the wicked. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Wicked? I want you to remember this. I want you to remember this. The reward of the wicked in this scripture, in this passage. Because Jehovah has set my refuge, Elyone, Most High, your habitation. No evil shall befall, neither any plague or stroke or mark shall come to your dwelling. For he shall give the messenger, Malach, charge over you to keep you in all your ways, and they shall bear you up, and your hands also, lest you dash your foot against a stone. Is that the end of it? According to Christians, that is the end of it. But what I'm going to show you right now is the fate of the United States of America and Rome. You will tread upon the lion and the serpent. Python, not adder. You see, the only snakes that they knew in King James Version and King James days up in Britain was the adder. No. A serpent, probably more like a cobra. Now he goes on to further describe the lion, the shackle, and the python. They are the young lion, the kafir, and the dragon. Shall you trample? Uh-oh. Well, who's the dragon? Everybody says the devil. True. Let me show you something. Let's just remind you of the dragon. Okay, so what we're going to do, I'm going to get rid of this. I don't know how that came there. So, dragon, red dragon at the Vatican. There it is, right there. The red dragon, the symbol of the Vatican of Rome. And there you have it. So the red dragon, the beast, and the false prophet are all in Rome. And the great whore. What? Are you saying that the United States of America is going to get the same treatment as the dragon? Yes, I am. But it's not me saying it. David said it in Psalm 91. Why? Let me show you this for the umpteenth time. The horrifying American roots of Nazi eugenics. I'm not going to read this to you today. I've spent plenty of time studying and reading for you today. You need to read this yourself. The United States of America, with their gain of function that has been happening long before Anthony Fauci ever was conceived, spawned Nazi eugenics. And the United States of America claims to be ally of Israel. No, it's not. That's a lie. Now, Marco Rubio, in my opinion, is the first Secretary of State of the United States that is actually so pro-Israel. I think if given the opportunity, or when the time of the end comes, if he's still alive, he would leave the United States of America and go to Israel and never return. He's the only politician that I would say a thing like that about. And there may be a reason why he's there. I don't know. The United States is not an ally of Israel. The United States is actually an enemy of Israel, as history has proven. But the United States of America swept it under the rug while they incorporated all of these scientists and Nazi scientists and doctors that were accused of horrific crimes against the Jews. They incorporated them into what is now the CIA. And the medical profession in this country. That's not something that an ally of the Jews would do. So how will the young Lion of Tarshish be trampled? Let's go to Isaiah 66. Or Isaiah. I keep saying it wrong. On one of these days I'm going to remember to learn to say it right. Oh, 66. This is once again where he is going to judge the wicked. Okay? So Jehovah's final judgment against the wicked. Jehovah, not the Lord, will come with fire and with his chariot, with his throne. The one that you can read about in Ezekiel. Like a whirlwind, to render his anger with fury and his rebuke with flames of fire. For by fire and by the sword will Jehovah judge all flesh, and the slain of Jehovah shall be many. Now, go to verse 18. I know their works and their thoughts, and it shall come that I will gather all the Gentiles and languages, and they shall come and see my glory. And I will set a sign among them, and I will send escaped of them to the Gentiles. That would be the two witnesses written about in Revelation 11. And who is the first victim of the two witnesses? 3.5 years of no rain and all sorts of plagues. Tarshish. Pul and Lud, those who draw the bow, to Tubal, to Greece, and to the coastlands of the Mediterranean Sea, aka the Roman Empire. To hear my fame, not the way they have it written, is to hear. See that? Shema means to hear. Shema means my report. To see my glory. And they, those two witnesses, those fugitives, shall declare my glory among the Gentiles. And they, those fugitives, will bring all your brethren for an offering unto Jehovah. So these fugitives, these escapees, see, refers to someone who has escaped or fled from danger, often used in context of war and disaster. These are fugitives, escapees. Fugitives, right here, definition: refugee, fugitive, escapee. He's going to send them back over to Tarshish first. And what does Isaiah, and you see that they're going to show his glory to Tarshish, Pul, Lud, Greece, and the coastlands, the Roman Empire, the 10 kings. And we go to Isaiah 60, and it says, the coastlands, wait. The coastlands will be gathering together and collecting in expectation of, these are, we just read in Isaiah 66, who they are gathering together. The people of Israel. The Jews. And they have lost Israel and Zionists. The ships of Tarshish first. Now, what does this first? First in place? First in rank? Chief? What does this actually mean? Yes, it's going to be first to bring Israel back home, because the vast majority, or the majority of Jews in all Israel, is still located beyond the Pillars of Heracles in the United States of America. But the word origin is derived from the root rosh, meaning head. What? So the young Lion of Tarshish is the head. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. And so you see, when you read Ezekiel 38, you realize that this invasion of Israel is a power play. If the young Lion of Tarshish is the head, is the big deal, is the big guy in the world, then clearly what Gog of the land of Magog, Rosh, Prince, Chief, that's head of Meshech and Tubal, and them with Persia, Cush, North Africa. Gomer includes Ashkenaz, which is the 10 kings of Europe, because Ashkenaz was the son of Gomer, and also the house of Togarmah in the far north quarter. That covers all of Europe. This is a power play between this and the big dog of Tarshish, the big lion, the young lion, the head of the table, United States of America. Yet, we read Psalm 91 that the Moshiach is going to tread upon both the young lion of Tarshish and the dragon of Rome under his feet because of his love. Anyway, it is about gathering all Israel back home. That's what it's about. So, I hope you learned something today. I hope you were patient enough to listen and read along with me. Be diligent in your studies, folks. There is no excuse to not learn these things. You need to learn these things to be ready for what is about to happen in the coming years.